Hello everybody and welcome back to another episode of the Football Betting Series here on YouTube UEFA Edition. We ended off 2024 with a decent record on the continent, 22 wins, 6 losses and 3 pushes, for a UEFA profit of £246.13. When we add that to our overall record, we stand at 103 wins, 40 losses with 19 pushes, and a series profit of £606.81. As the league phase of the competition comes to a close, there are a number of factors to take into account when picking selections in today's episode, namely which sides need to win in order to book a top 8 spot or a top 24 spot as well. Not all of the odds are up at the time of recording, so I will update the odds closer to the kickoff in these games. If you like a bet but the price seems off, please don't back it just because I am. Use your own judgment, keep your stakes to a sensible level, and always gamble responsibly. I've got a number of picks in the Champions League and Europa League for today's episode, so without further ado, let's get into it. We kick things off in the Champions League as 13th place Atalanta play host to 29th place Sturm. And Atalanta, they're coming off a loss in their last game to Real Madrid on Matchday 6 by 3-2. The Bergamo side were 1-0 down after just 10 minutes, and despite levelling up from the penalty spot in first half stoppage time, they were ultimately overpowered with 2 goals in 3 minutes from Vinny Jr. and Bellingham. Looking at the underlying numbers, however, Atalanta will be really encouraged by what they managed to put together against the defending Champions League winners. They took 20 shots, which was twice that of Los Blancos, and generated a massive 3.33 XG. The only real negative came on the defensive side of the ball. On top of shipping 3 goals against Real Madrid, Atalanta also gave up 7 big chances and an XG of 2.1 to Los Blancos. In terms of form, this was the first loss of the campaign for Atalanta, breaking a brief 2-game winning streak, and qualification is very much still in their hands here in Matchday 7. They host the Sturm side, who are coming off a 3-2 loss in their last game as well. This was away to Lille. After being 2-0 down, Pitsavilli scored in the 4th minute of stoppage time to give Sturm some hope going into the second half. And this hope was realised very quickly after 2 minutes into the second half with Bayer's equaliser. From then on, it was Sturm that looked the most likely side to score the 3rd goal, but Haraldsson managed to score in the 81st minute to give Lille the lead and ultimately the win. In terms of form, this loss was a familiar feeling for the Austrian outfit. They've lost 5 of their last 6 Champions League stage matches, which shows that perhaps the competition level is just a step too far for them. Across the 6 matches they've played, Sturm have averaged just 37% of the ball, and they're allowing opposition an average of 15 shots per game and an average XG of 1.67. When we look at the head-to-head record, these sides were drawn against each other in last year's UEFA Europa League group stage. Sturm earned a draw in Austria thanks to a late penalty, and in Bergamo, Atalanta picked up 3 points with a 1-0 win. These results allowed Atalanta to qualify top of the group. My prediction for today's game is that Atalanta will win. With 2 games left to go, 13th place is not as comfortable as it sounds. Atalanta are just 2 points away from those top 8 spots, but they are also only 3 points away from 24th position. With the final match being played against Barcelona in Barcelona, 3 points is simply a must in this one. Sturm haven't showed that they can compete at this level, and I don't think they're going to cause Atalanta any issues here. So with that all said, I'm going to back Atalanta to pick up a win for a full stake in bet number 1. Our second selection sees 33rd place Bologna playing host to 9th place Borussia Dortmund. And Bologna, they're coming off a draw in their last game away to Benfica. Though looking at some of the numbers, it was really Benfica that was the side that were most likely to go on to win the match. The Eagles generated 3 times the amount of shots, 2 times the amount of big chances, and almost 6 times the amount of expected goals in that game. In terms of form, whilst it's nice to pick up a draw and break a 4-game losing streak, not winning that match really has sealed the deal for Bologna. No win in their last 6 Champions League matches, and in order to qualify, they'll need to pick up 6 points from their final 2 games and overturn a -6 goal difference in the process. They host the Borussia Dortmund side, who are coming off a loss to Barcelona in their last game by 3-2. A Rafinha goal and a Ferran Torres brace were too much for Graz to make up the difference with his brace, in which was a really fun game to watch, although there wasn't too much defensive action in this match. In terms of form, that loss did break Dortmund's 2-game winning streak, as the Black and Yellow have lost both games against Tier 1 oppositions, the other match being the 5-2 loss to Real Madrid earlier in the contest. In terms of the head-to-head record, there's no competitive record to speak of, so on to the prediction. And with Bologna essentially unable to qualify for the top 24 and then pushing for European qualification in Serie A, I don't think Vincenzo Italiano will go full strength here, and Dortmund are just 1 point away from securing a top 8 spot, which will give them a bye into the next rounds of the Champions League. Dortmund also have 27th place Shakhtar on the final day of the season, so a win isn't 100% a must in this one. So with all that in mind, I'm going to be backing Borussia Dortmund to pick up the win, but only for a half stake in bet number 2. Our third and final selection in the Champions League for this video sees 35th place Slovan playing host to 26th place Stuttgart. And Slovan, they lost yet another game in this competition in their last match to Atletico Madrid by 3-1. Julian Alvarez, he opened the scoring after just 16 minutes, before a second half Griezmann brace put the game beyond all doubt. And the stats do reflect this. Atleti took 60% of the ball, quadrupling up on shots compared to Slovan, and generating just shy of 2 times the amount of expected goal against the Slovakians. In terms of form, it is 6 straight losses for Slovan in the Champions League, and they are allowing an average of 3.5 goals per game. Their Champions League season is all but over at this point. They host a Stuttgart side who gave themselves a chance of staying in the Champions League, a real shot on the arm against young boys in their most recent match. They won by 5-1. Fabian Rieder was the man of the match as he chipped in with 3 assists, orchestrating play from the right wing, and he'll look to do so again against a struggling Slovan side. In terms of form, that result did end a 2-game losing streak for Stuttgart, and a good win in this match could see the German side climb as high as 15th place in the Champions League. In terms of the head-to-head records, these sides have squared off once before. That was in the qualification rounds for the 2010-2011 group stages of the Europa League. Stuttgart picked up a 1-0 win on the road before a 2-2 draw in Stuttgart saw the Germans reach the group stage proper. My prediction for today's game is that Slovan are playing for nothing other than pride. Betting against them in this competition has been fruitful so far, and there's no reason to stop now, especially considering that Stuttgart do need to pick up points in this particular match as they do host PSG on the final day of the contest. So if they are to get any more points up on that Champions League board, this is the best chance to do it. To that end, I will be backing Stuttgart to pick up a win for a full stake here in bet number 3. Moving across from the Champions League into the Europa League now, I do have 3 selections, and that starts off with 13th place Bodo Glimt playing host to 27th place Maccabi Tel Aviv. And Bodo Glimt added another win to their record with their most recent match against Besiktas. Gedson Fernandez put the Turks ahead in the 21st minute, but Bodo turned the score on its head just before half-time, with 2 goals thanks to Zinkenenkel and Bjurtuf in the 37th and 43rd minute respectively. From here on, it was Bodo that looked most likely to score the next goal, judging by the second half statistics, with the scoreline finishing 2-1 to the Norwegians. In terms of form, this win did break a brief 2-game losing streak for Bodo, and they are well positioned to strike for those top 8 spots. They're just 1 point away from 8th place Rangers. They host a Maccabi side who themselves picked up a win in their last match against RFS by the skin of their teeth. The Israeli side were 2-1 up with going into stoppage time, and at the end of the game, RFS were handed a penalty in the 103rd minute. This effort was saved by Rui Mashpati to seal the deal for Maccabi and a big 3 points. In terms of form, it's back-to-back wins in the Europa League now, following an opening to the campaign where the Israelis lost 4 straight. These recent results have given Maccabi a shot at qualification from this league stage. They're just 1 point away from Elfsborg in 24th. In terms of the head-to-head record, there is nothing to go on, so straight on to the prediction. I do like Bodo to pick up a win in this one, but they are just coming into this match a little bit cold. The Norwegian League is over for the year, and Bodo's last competitive fixture was on the 12th of December in this very competition. Whereas Maccabi, on the other hand, they're well into their domestic season, so whilst I do fancy Bodo on paper, I will be going with goals here instead. Bodo Glimt have seen over 2.5 goals in 5 of their 6 Europa League matches, including all 3 matches at home for an average of 3.67 goals per game. Whereas Maccabi, they've also seen over 2.5 goals in 5 of their 6 Europa League matches, including all 3 matches away from home. Their average is even higher, 4.00 goals per game on the road. With all of this in mind, I'm going to back over 2.5 goals for a full stake here in bet number 4. Our 5th selection sees 18th place Porto playing host to 15th place Olympaicos, and Porto, they eased to a simple 2-0 win against Midtjylland in their last Europa League game. Loda and Agahoa were the scorers on the night, and taking a look at the stat, this result was really never in doubt. 17 shots to 5 with 5 big chances to 1, and the Dragools generated an XG of 2.35 against Midtjylland. In terms of form, it's been very mixed for Porto in the Europa League. Across their 6 matches, they've won 2, they've drawn 2, and they've lost 2, and that means that they're 18th in the league. They're 3 points away from those top 8 spots, but only 2 points ahead of the 24th spot as well. They need to keep putting up points to guarantee qualification, and they host an Olympaicos side who were held to a goalless draw in their last match against Twente. Number-wise, it was an evenly contested match, so perhaps a draw is the best result here. In terms of form, it's 3 draws in a row, and only 1 loss in their last 6 for the Greeks. Similarly to Porto, Olympaicos need to keep the momentum up, as they are 2 points off 8th place and just 3 ahead of 24th. In terms of the head-to-head record, these sides were drawn against each other in the 2020-2021 group stages of the Champions League. Porto won 2-0 both home and away, which result ultimately saw Porto qualify for the group from Group C at Olympaicos' expense. My prediction for today's game is that I like Porto to win here. They have the better of the head-to-head record over Olympaicos, and as just discussed, they've also won the last 2 home ties in the Europa League without conceding. That will be worrying news for an Olympaicos side who were the second lowest scorers on the road with just 1 goal scored in their 3 matches. So it's a side who score a lot at home and don't concede against a side that can't buy a goal on the road, and for those reasons I will back Porto to pick up the win for a full stake in bet number 5. Our 6th and final selection in today's episode sees 7th place Manchester United playing host to 8th place Rangers. And Manchester United are coming off a 2-1 away win at Victoria Pilsen. After a goalless first half, the ex-Watford striker Matty Vydra opened the scoring earlier in the second, and this really lit a fire under Manchester United, as indicated by the statistics. In the second half, they generated 2.53 XG and created 5 big chances. It was Rasmus Højlund that stepped up to find a brace, with the second goal coming in the 88th to earn the Red Devils 3 big points as they hope to qualify for the round of 16 by securing a top 8 spot in the league stage. In terms of form, that does mean it's 3 wins on the bounce for Manchester United in the Europa League, following a run of 3 draws to open their campaign. And they host a Rangers side who drew their last game against one of the other British sides left in the competition, in Tottenham Hotspurs. Rangers took the lead through Igor Mane early in the second half before Kulusevski levelled the scoring later on, 1-1 the final score. In terms of form, that does mean that the Gers are unbeaten in their last 4 games, and they've lost just 1 of their last 6 matches in the Europa League. In terms of the head-to-head records, these sides have not squared off in the best part of 15 years. They were drawn against each other in the 2010-2011 edition of the Champions League. A goalless affair at Old Trafford was followed up by a 1-0 United win at Ibrox, with Wayne Rooney's penalty the only thing to separate the 2 sides. My prediction for today's game is that both sides will fancy their chances in this one. United have historically been the bigger club and come into this match as favourites against Rangers, but the Gers' hopes will be boosted by Manchester United's recent poor form and rocky defence, and to that end, I'm looking at both teams to score. Manchester United have seen both teams to score in 5 of their 6 Europa League matches and in 2 of their last 3 matches at home, whereas Rangers, they've seen both teams to score in 4 of their last 6 Europa League matches and in 2 of their 3 on the road. When we look at the head-to-head records, none of the last 4 competitive meetings have seen both teams to score, but these are completely different eras. And with all of this in mind, I'm going to be taking both teams to score for a half stake in the final bet of today's episode. So there we have it, 6 picks in today's episode, starting off in the Champions League. Atalanta versus Sturm Graz, we're backing the Italians at odds of 1.23, a £40 full stake to return £6.90. Next up we have Bologna versus Dortmund, we're backing the away side odds of 1.9, a half stake of £20 to return 18. And our final Champions League selection of today's episode, Slovan versus Stuttgart, we're going to back the German side, Stuttgart, at odds of 1.19, a £40 full stake to return £7.60. Moving on to the Europa League, we have Bodo versus Maccabi Tel Aviv. We're taking over 2.5 goals. The odds aren't up at the time of recording, but I will update the pinned comment down below with the odds in this game and the United game as well. We also have Porto versus Olympaicos. We're backing the Portuguese side at home to pick up the win, odds of 1.61, £40 stake to return 24.40. And wrapping up today's episode, Manchester United versus Rangers. Both teams to score is the bet. The odds are unknown, but we will be backing this selection with a half stake of £20. So across the midweek, we're going to be risking £180 to hopefully pick up at least £59.60, which will be higher once we add in the Bodo and Man United potential profits. So if you made it to this point in the video, please drop a like down below and subscribe to the channel for more content. And as always, have yourself a lovely day.